Okay. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session on Introduction to College Level Research. My name is Abhishek, and I'll be your host for today. Along with me, I have Vivek Bhandari, who is the Chief Mentor at Easy Scholar. He is a BTech from IIT Delhi and an MBA from IIM Calcutta. Vivek is based out of Luxembourg, and he would be taking you through the session about research program. Before we start with the session, just a quick introduction about who we are and what we do. So we at Easy Scholar help high school students like you in building a strong profile and create a strategic plan for success at leading global institutions like Ivy Leagues, Oxbridge, and other top universities. We offer services like SAT prep, research papers, and admissions counseling and profile building. With this, I hand over to Vivek to take you further through his presentation. Welcome, Vivek.
Okay, thank you, Abhishek. So first of all, good evening, everyone. I think most of our audience is from Delhi, Gurgaon area. Is that right? Okay, and I can also see that there's some students here from grade 9. Are there any students from grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 also in the session?
Yes, I am getting response. We have grade 11 students as well.
You can please use the chat box to enter your information, your names or your in. And we work with students who are looking at Ivy Leagues and Ivy plus universities, like etc. And number of things we help students with. The most important of which is that's how we started in 2020, and we have students who have been admitted to all the top universities in the world, and we believe that research papers provide competitions. You may please enter them on the chat, the chat for this Zoom meeting. Or if you want to speak, we can also promote you to a panelist. You can probably ask your questions. So we can try to do that towards the end. But keep on sending your questions, and we'll see if we have time. We can promote some of you to panelists in case you want to discuss anything or any questions you want to ask. Sorry, so there is a message that my voice broke. So any questions that you have, you may please enter them in the chat. And what we'll do is once we are finished with the presentation, we will take all the questions at the end. Okay, Abhishek, next slide, please. So first of all, a little bit about me. So I'm a BTech from IIT Delhi. I'm a mechanical engineer, passed out in 1998. And after that, I did my MBA from IIM Calcutta. And in my final year, when I was doing my BTech project at IIT Delhi, we had to do, it's called a BTech project, which is similar to a research project. Now, this being mechanical engineering, we came up with a project where we were testing the strength of different welded joints. So we used to create the welded joint. So we used to weld two plates of steel together. And after that, we would create the samples, and then we would do various kinds of strength testing on the sample. And my BTech partner and I, we worked very hard for several months, almost 7-8 months. And at the end of that 7-8 month period, when we were finally writing down the report, we figured out that what we had originally set out to do was practically impossible because it required a very large number of samples compared to what we had. I mean, we had worked very hard. We had been in the laboratory and the workshop a lot. um, trying to weld plates and trying to create the right kind of joints, which we could then do the testing on. But we just came up with a handful of samples. And anyhow, we went and spoke to our professor who was guiding us. He was considerate and we completed our degree in time. But there was a big learning that in terms of research projects, you have to have a clear idea of what you are setting out to accomplish and how you want to do it. I think that's one of the main advantages that research provides. So you do a project where you decide what is the scope of the project. It is easy to become over ambitious and try to do something which you are not equipped to do. So that's why when you look at the top research universities in the world, if you look at Penn State, uh, they say that nearly one-third of the admitted students engaged in academic research during their time in high school. Similarly, University of Cambridge looks for connection between a student's research and how it relates to their further future studies. Likewise, for MIT, research and independent projects, they demonstrate a student's ability to think critically and engage with the subjects. So that's why research plays such an important role with all of these universities. In fact, for these top universities, one of the criteria that they measure students on is called self-presentation and intellectual vitality. So in the self-presentation and intellectual vitality, the kind of research work that you have done, that becomes crucial when you show your curiosity, when you show your understanding of a subject or your passion for a subject. So that's why all these universities place such high importance on good research projects. Next slide. So in the previous slide, we looked at what are philosophically the university is looking for in research. On this slide, you can see specific prompts that students have to answer. So for example, Columbia University specifically provides you an opportunity to talk about research papers that you have done. They have a specific prompt. Have you completed research with a faculty member, advisor, or a mentor in an academic discipline such as a science, engineering, humanities, social science, languages, or the academic interest? This is an important part of your submission. Similarly, Stanford has a question where they ask that Stanford community is deeply curious and driven to learn in and out of the classroom. Reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. And if you have done the right kind of research papers, you have the right tools and the right experiences to answer this question well. Similarly, Caltech, which is the premier engineering college at par with MIT, they also ask you, do you plan to submit a research project to Caltech? And if yes, they ask you in depth about that research project. And they also ask you to talk about 2 STEM related experiences. So I think in the previous slide, as well as in this slide, where you see the actual university prompts, it becomes clear that how research helps you in presenting a strong application, as well as answering the prompts well. Okay, next slide. Some statistics, so fun facts. We know that the top universities in the world, let's say Harvard or Stanford or MIT or Caltech or Yale or Columbia, they're extremely exclusive and their admission rates are in low single digits. If you look at international students, the admission rate is even lower than this. So that means out of 100 students who are applying, 3 or less than 3 students get in from an international perspective. And when you're fighting, so you need to have good acads. You need to have good grades for any of the top universities. You need to have a good SAT or ACT score if you're applying to a top US university. I mean, maybe with the exception of UCs, for all the other universities, the good SAT score or ACT score makes a big difference. But that alone is not sufficient. You still have to differentiate your application through research papers, co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, etc. We have noted in the last few years that having a strong research experience boosts your admission chances by up to 3 times. And We speak to a lot of admission officers, and every exclusive university, when you're talking about the top 25, 30 universities in the US, and when we're talking about the top 5, 10 universities in the UK, they place a lot of importance in demonstrated interest in the field that they're considering to major in. So I think that's the reason why research is so important, and why those of you who are looking for admissions to these universities in US, UK, Canada, etc., should be considering research. Next slide. Okay. So let me talk about some commonly held myths about research papers, and then I can talk in rest of the presentation to answer these questions. So some of the questions that we encounter regularly from students, the first one is only college or PhD students can do research. That's a common one. Then research is only for science students. That's also a very common one. I don't know enough to start a research paper. That's a good question. And yes, it's a common question. I need to figure out my topic on my own. And lastly, I need to be a topper to publish a paper. So these are some of the questions that we regularly encounter. And in the presentation, we are planning to address those. But apart from these, if there are questions that you have, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we'll try to address it at the end of the presentation. Next slide. So first of all, what is research? So research is a systematic investigation that aims to discover new knowledge and deepen our understanding of the world around us. So seems very simple and straightforward. Systematic investigation that aims to discover new knowledge and deepen our understanding of the world around us. However, in practice, it's a little more complicated than that. Research also involves asking questions, gathering evidence, and drawing conclusions based on that evidence. Next slide. What are the advantages? Why should you do research? It helps develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills. These are essential for success, whether you're working in the private sector or whether you're working as a professor. It is crucially helpful in any kind of a career. Also, since you are describing a problem and then deciding how to solve it, you also get a certain amount of project management skills that you can talk about. Research is also a unique opportunity for high school students to engage in scientific inquiry, pursue their interests, and contribute to existing knowledge. And as we saw in the first couple of slides, it is for these reasons why research is regarded so heavily by all the top universities in the world. In fact, if you look at any of these universities, if you just do a Google search on Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard or Stanford, most of the times it will come back saying research university located in California or research university located in Massachusetts. So these all pride themselves as being research universities. Okay, next slide. So what are the different types of research that can be done? So the first one is primary research. In primary research, you design an experiment and then you collect data points. And after that, you use the data points that you have collected to come up with your conclusions. Very simply, this is what primary research is, where you collect data and you use the data to come up with conclusions. Now, depending on the kind of thing you're researching or the kind of error rate that you want, you might need to conduct a certain number of experiments. There is something called statistical significance. So for example, if you're testing a medicine, then the error percentage that you can have has to be extremely low. For example, if you're testing a microprocessor, the kind of errors that they have is like a 1 in trillion. So depending on the kind of work that you're working on and what you're researching and how critical it is, you will have different data sets that you can use, and you have to have an error rate within a certain limit. So that's what primary research is about. At the beginning of the presentation, I gave an example of my own BTech project where we are doing the strength testing of welded joints. So welding is where you join two plates using a molten metal or using a deposit from electrode. And that's where we had to collect a large number of samples. So while our idea was good, in terms of the number of samples we required to test what we wanted to do, we just didn't have enough time for it, and we had not done good planning for the project. Secondary research. So secondary research is something where you do a literature review. Even in primary research projects, you still always have a component of secondary research because you try to look at what work has already been done in that field and you use that work in your own research. You have to provide the right citations, you have to provide the right references. But subject to doing that, all primary research projects also always have a secondary research component. In some fields, for example, theoretical physics, or for example, astrophysics, secondary research is the only possible option because as a student, you will not have access to high-tech labs or telescopes or kind of equipment required to study those phenomena. So in certain fields, secondary research is the only option. So when you start upon a project, this is one of the important things to understand, whether it's primary research, whether it's secondary research, and how you're going to conduct it. Next slide. Okay. So these are some of the recently published research papers in international journals that our students have published. So for example, the first paper that you see on the left side, this is by a student from London, Keshav Sheshadri, and he did an aerodynamic review of the 2010 McLaren Mercedes rear wing. So the rear wing is, it helps in the aerodynamics of the car and it helps in keeping the car stable, especially when it's traveling with high speed. So Keshav did this project and in our brochure or on our website, you can find links to all of these published papers. Keshav actually, couple of days back, he got his admit from Imperial College, London and University College of London. He's waiting for additional results, which should be coming soon. But this is an excellent paper that he has done on the review of aerodynamics of the 2010 Mercedes McLaren car, the rear wing. Similarly, the second paper that you see on the right side, effect of Christmas on the cryptocurrency market. So this is more of an economics / econometrics paper. So in this paper, the student Kevin, he tries to analyze the impact of the Christmas holiday New Year period on the prices of cryptocurrencies. So this is more of a econometrics and economics paper. And all these papers are present on our website. If you're interested, you're very welcome to go and see the papers and see the kind of work students have done. Next slide. Okay, some additional papers. So for example, the first paper on the left side, exoplanet detection using machine learning. So this is a very interesting project. This student used the data which was coming from NASA and the James Hubble telescope, and he designed algorithms to look at those pictures and to try to identify exoplanets. So this is a field within computer science called computer vision, and the student did an excellent project on this particular topic. The paper has also been published. It's there on our website. The second paper on the right side, how government corruption impacts the real economy. So for example, this paper, this student has an interest in politics, philosophy and economics, PPE. So similarly, the paper that she has done is investigating the impact of corruption on economic performance, focusing on grease the wheels and sand the wheels hypothesis. So I think we answered a few questions here. So I mean, first of all, research can be conducted by high school students. Additionally, it doesn't have to be only in science. It could be done in other subjects like economics, sociology, or politics as well. And there's some other myths that we'll also answer in a few minutes. So Abhishek, next slide, please. Great. So what happens is, depending on the topic of the paper, the subject the student is writing it in, whether it's life sciences or physical sciences, or whether it's pharma or economics or sociology, we help students publish their papers in different journals. And here you can see some examples of different journals where our students have been published. And as of right now, more than 95% of our students, their papers get published in journals. So at the time when the student starts the paper, we help identify the right journal, and we help them work with the mentor in a way that they can work efficiently and submit the paper for a speedy publication. Next slide, please. Okay. Different research subjects that we offer. So if you look at subjects, we offer physics, life sciences, computer science, economics, psychology, and chemistry. And within these subjects, there are different topics that students work on. So this is not just physics. It could be if someone is interested in quantum mechanics or superconductivity or aerodynamics, for example, we can find them a mentor who can work with them on that particular topic. So Keshav Sheshadri, the student I spoke about, he has been working on something called as Formula One in schools for last few years. So his interest was in aerodynamics and F1 cars. That's why he did the project on the aerodynamic review of the 2010 McLaren Mercedes rear wing. Similarly, on biology, there are detailed topics including molecular biology, genetics, biotechnology, hematology, oncology, etc. Likewise for computer science, chemistry, psychology, and economics. So no matter what your interest, we will be able to help you find the right mentor who you can work with on the subject and the topic of your choice. Next slide. Okay. So things to keep in mind when you approach a research project. So first of all, identify a project which is more suitable for you. Identify what kind of work will you do. Will you do primary research? Will you do a computer-based simulation? Will you do a maker's project in which you are designing a device or you're designing something innovative and then you're publishing your work? Or you're planning to go for secondary research? So we can help with all these options. We can help with whether it's a primary research project or a computer-based simulation, or if it's a maker's project where you're trying to create a new device and you want to publish your work, or if it's a secondary research. The second thing is understand the time and resources available to you. This is very important because high school students are busy. There are a number of things you have to do. You have to make sure that you do well in your CATs. You have to get a good SAT score. There are extracurriculars that you have to work on. You have to go to school. So understand what is the time available and what are the resources. Will your school allow you to use a laboratory? Uh, what is the kind of experiment that you can do where you can conduct primary research? So that is something which you need to work with a mentor to understand and design the best possible project subject to the time and resources available. The third thing is discussion with your research guide to frame the right research question, identify the right literature for review, and finally data collection. Once you have done all this, then your guide helps you review your paper, finalize it, and submit it for publication. So essentially, these are the steps that go into publishing a high quality research paper. So next slide. On this slide, I'll talk a little bit about the program schedule. So we've spoken about students, our students who have gone through research papers in different subjects. So what happens is, once a student tells us that they're interested in, let's say, computer science, we have a discussion with them to understand what type of a project they would like to do within computer science. Because we work with a number of mentors and professors who are, let's say, professors in different universities, mostly in the UK, because from a timing perspective, that works better. Some of the mentors are also postdoctoral researchers who have completed their PhDs and they engaged in in-depth research in a particular subject. So they're experts in a subject. So that's why They also don't want to generally take a student and talk to them about general physics or general biology. So based on what the student is interested in, we identify the suitable mentor whose own research is in a similar field. Once that is done, we share a few mentor resumes with the student. We also ask the students to take a look at the mentor's resume and tell us which of the mentor's research resonates the most with them. After that, we conduct a 30-minute meeting with a mentor. In that 30-minute meeting, we advise the students to come prepared with some ideas, at least a general idea of what they want to work in. And the students also have gone through the mentor's resume before the meeting, so they know the kind of work that mentor has also done, let's say in molecular biology, or let's say in superconductivity, or let's say in biochemistry. So that leads to a good discussion. And assuming that we can work out the schedule that works for the student and the mentor, then the sessions start. Normally, there are about 10 to 11 sessions. So the students meet the mentor every week for approximately 1 hour. These are not expected to be lecture sessions where the mentor will teach you a topic. However, they will help you frame your research question. They will help identify the right research that has taken place in that subject, which you can also refer to in your paper, and help you solve some of the doubts that you have. I mean, in some cases, design your research program. So, for example, if you want to do an economics paper or if you want to do a psychology paper where you need a survey, for example, they can help you design the right kind of survey, which you can then administer. That's what you can use in your results. So, normally, in the first couple of sessions, the research problem and the research question is identified. And then subsequently, the student works on the data collection along with the mentor's guidance. And then finally, they submit the final report to the mentor. Once the mentor approves it, our team helps in submitting it to the journals that were identified initially for publication. I'm going to pause on this slide for a moment and let everybody absorb the information. Okay, I think Abhishek, we can move on. So I was speaking about the profiles of various mentors. So for example, as I said, several of our mentors, they are professors who are teaching full-time in universities. Some of them may be postdoctoral researchers who have completed their PhDs and they're doing some advanced research in a particular topic. But what you will find in common is all the mentors would be an expert in the particular field that they're working in. So some mentor profiles are provided here. Next slide. Yeah, additionally, some more mentor profiles. The common thing is the mentors would be experts in that particular field. So it would not be as broad as biology, or it would not be as broad as physics or economics. We prefer to find out a mentor who has been working on that same area within that subject which you want to research in, and that leads for the best research experience and a high quality paper. Okay, Abhishek, next slide, please. So I spoke about how the process works from initially sharing the mentor resume with the student looking at the mentor's own work and deciding which mentor appeals the most to them, and then the initial meetings followed by the research sessions. So the advantage of working with Easy Scholar is, first of all, you're doing one-on-one sessions with professors and postdoctoral researchers from top institutions. And you can see our website. You will see a number of published papers and the high quality work that our students have done. The second thing is flexibility to choose research topics of your choice. So earlier, till 2023, we used to offer research papers in summer. And based on popular feedback, last year, we provided research papers through the year. And this is possible because students are working one-on-one with the mentors. So for example, some students, in grade 10, they are free right now, especially the IB students, till their exams take place in the month of May. So some of our IB students, they're working with professors on research papers right now because they're not super busy with their class 10 boards. So they want to complete their first research paper right now. So that's the flexibility that the current model provides. You can work on research papers during your winter break or maybe a summer break or any time of the year when you're free. That actually helps. But the only thing is, at the time when you start, you want to be able to finish it in about 10 to 12 weeks because that is the ideal time. I mean, in certain circumstances, it can go beyond that. But whenever you are starting upon it, have an objective to finish it in about 12 weeks. And as I mentioned earlier, high quality papers are published in international journals. And several of the students also get letters of recommendation from the mentors. Next slide. So as I said earlier, our students have been placed in all the top universities in USA, UK, and Canada. These are some of the recent admits, including UPenn, Dartmouth, Stanford, and Cambridge. I mean, we could have multiple pages with pictures, but we just wanted to give a sample that at all the top research universities, you will find our students who have worked on research papers and differentiated their profiles with their research papers. So with that, we come to the end of the presentation. If there are any questions, we are happy to answer them now. Okay, any questions? So I can see the first question from Darsh. Is it recommended to do one or more research papers? So Darsh, that's an excellent question. It depends on what are the activities you want to show on your profile. So for example, when you apply to US universities, you have to report 10 activities. Now, out of those 10 activities, the top 6, 7 are very important. So the decision whether you want to do one research paper or two research paper depends on what other activities you have. I think one research experience is crucial, which everybody should show. Some students also should too. It depends on what are the other things that they have on their profile that they want to show to the universities. So that's one part of the answer. The second part also depends upon when are the students starting. So depending on your knowledge of that subject, many students write their first research paper after class 10, and then they do a second research paper after class 11 or during class 11. So it also depends upon the timing, because if you're already in class 11, for example, there may not be enough time to do two papers. So that's how this works. So I can see some additional questions. Would this recording get shared? So I think Abhishek has answered that. So yes, this recording will be shared. Any other questions, anyone? Okay. So now we've started getting some good questions. I'm currently nearing the end of my 11th grade. If I don't know what specific topic to write a research paper on, what resources could help me decide? So that's an excellent question. So yes, so for example, somebody who is in class 11, I think class 11th would get over, depending on your school and your board, sometime around, I would say May, June timeframe. So you would have the summer holidays where you can work on a research paper. So I think the first thing to consider should be what is the course you're planning to major in college. So for example, if you want to study business or if you want to study economics or business would be the choice of research that you should work on. If you're interested in medicine or life sciences or biology, then that should be the kind of subject you should look at. If you're looking at physics or engineering or comp science, then you should look at the subjects accordingly. So the first part is easy, selecting the subject. The second part is slightly more complicated, choosing a topic within that subject, which you can write a paper on. So normally what we suggest is it's always better if you have some familiarity with the topic. So for example, if you want to do research on, let's say, gravitation, and let's say you are in class 10th and you have not yet covered Newton's laws of gravitation in school, it will not be the best for you because you will spend so much time learning what you will anyways learn in class in grade 11 that the research will not be so fruitful. So, Shaurya, to answer your question, within the subject, identify some topics that interest you or that you like, and then look at research that has already been done in that field, and that will help you arrive at some ideas. And beyond that, our team or our mentors can help you decide a topic. Second question, I see this is from Niral. Can the students start preparing from class 10? That's an excellent question. So yes, we strongly recommend that. So most of the students, they write their first research paper after class 10th. And what happens is, and in fact, one question that had come previously was, should students write one paper or two papers? So what happens is, when students write their first paper at the end of class 10th, the second paper that they write in class 11th or at the end of class 11th is a more advanced paper. So for example, I'll give an example of economics. Many of the economics students, they would write a first paper at the end of their class 10th. This would be a more basic paper with less quantitative analysis. Whereas when they write their second paper at the end of class 11, they already have done some research. They've already got some exposure to economics as a subject and research work. And they have had multiple months to plan out what kind of research they want to do. So this paper is definitely more advanced and more complicated than the first one. Many students may use statistical tools like R or Python for doing different kinds of analysis on data sets. Similarly for physics, similarly for biology also. So it's a very good idea to start preparing in class 10th and to do one paper at the end of class 10th. And that puts you in a good place to do a more complicated project or a more complicated research project at the end of your class 11th. I think Abhishek has attached the research paper brochure in the chat. So everybody should be able to download it from there. And within that brochure, you will see number of links to recently published papers of our students. They're in different subjects. So you can see the published papers. I think that may also give you some ideas about the kind of research work you want to do. Any other questions we can answer? What is the criteria for a research paper to be classified as good? Is there a checklist I should follow? So, Shaurya, uh, when a research paper is accepted by a good journal, that is like a certification that the paper is up to certain standards. That means it is well written, because most of the journals, they have something which is called as an impact rating. So if you're being published in a journal with a good impact rating, that shows that it's a good journal and being accepted there is helpful. So that is part one of being a good paper. Secondly, more importantly, for most of the top universities, I mean, Caltech, Columbia, Yale, uh, Princeton, many of these universities, you can provide the research paper that you have done. In fact, they require that you provide the research paper that you have done and an abstract. So if you have done a good paper, it comes out in the abstract as well as you can send a link to the university of the work that you have done. So if you have been published in a good journal, and if you have a good research problem, and if you've done good work, it comes out on reading the paper and they do look at the paper. We speak with many admission officers. They look at the research papers that students have given. You're welcome. So at this time, I don't see any other questions. We are happy to, you can email any questions you have to us, or you can contact our team. We are happy to answer any questions you want us to answer. Abhishek, anything you want to say?
No, Vic. So, students, additionally, I have also pasted the link of our website where you can find more information about research papers. And if you want to have a one-on-one discussion with our team, you can fill out the form there. So the link of that is uh, there in the chat.
So everyone, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. Have a great rest of your evening and very happy 2025 to everyone.